Dr. Rob cracking a beer open to start this podcast. Which one are you drinking right now, man?
Well, I'm actually drinking, so this is a new Glarus. This is the Gyrator Doppel. So,
Yeah.
Boy, that's a good beer, by the way. I love New Glarus, and I think it gets a bad rap because everybody's like, well, Spotted Cow, it's just...
Let me see that real quick.
Nothing crazy, but I mean, it's one of those. I would say Spotted Cow would maybe be my, would probably be like number 4 on my list.
Steve Swanstrom from Centris Federal Credit Union. You are Smoking the Bandit. I know you have a daughter that lives in Milwaukee, and you haven't brought back New Glarus for a long time. Steve Swanstrom, we're paging you.
This is the last of it.
We're running out, man. We're running out.
I think you had a couple of those raspberry ales.
Oh, those are mine. Those are my sours, man.
You love the raspberry sours. There's a strawberry rhubarb sour in there.
Oh, really?
Like, I specifically didn't touch those because I'm like, that's Trav's stash.
All right, so we got a guest. I know it's spring football season, okay? But fuck it. We're not going to talk football. We're going to talk basketball tonight. Because in the studio, my friend, your friend, just got back from Houston where he officiated his 9th Final Four, a Kearney State Loper. We had Bill Bush in here the other day.
Wow.
And Bill Bush was like, it's Kearney State. It's not UNK. It is Kearney State. Are you one of those guys? This is John Higgins, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm a Kearney State guy. People ask me that all the time, and I always tell them I went to Kearney State, and they say, is that still school now? Yeah, it's still no. Well, I guess it is UNK, but it's a Kearney State to me.
You talk to anybody who went to school there, even after the change, it's still Kearney State.
Sure, it is.
I don't disagree. It's, your brother-in-law John Ryan from Jerry Ryan Gentleman's Clothing and Apparel. He's a Kearney State guy. They're all Kearney State guys. Very few people call it UNK. Now we're drinking beer, John. You were the first guest. You were the first guest who brought their own drinks.
Cooler.
So bring your cooler up and show everybody what. Because here's the deal. On Twitter, John's got like this faux Twitter account, and people always give shot. I always comment it because they're like, "How many martinis did Higgins have tonight? How many martinis did Hollywood have tonight?" And we're gonna get into Hollywood and stuff. And I keep going. John doesn't drink martinis.
Don't drink martinis. No.
Yeah. So this is he's undoing the bag. John Higgins he's a
Tanqueray guy.
He's a Tanqueray guy. Look at that. If you want to know, it's Tanqueray
with diet
tonic. What's up with the diet tonic?
It's that sugar gives me a headache.
Okay, so my wife taught me this. I didn't realize this. So just soda water, no sugar.
No, I
tonic water, sugar.
Yeah.
So you go with the diet tonic because I was a big tonic guy. Like buying beer gets expensive. So like during the COVID shutdown, where everybody would sit at home and like just pound alcohol all day because you didn't have anything better to do.
But if you're drinking diet tonic, why don't you just drink soda?
Because
I don't like the soda taste.
Because you get quinine from the tonic.
What's quinine? I'm an idiot.
Quinine is quinine.
Okay, what does quinine do for you?
It's an antimicrobial.
Okay.
It makes you healthy.
Stop it.
Kills the COVID.
It kills the COVID.
That's why I drank so much for a year and a half.
Exactly. That's why everybody That's why everybody was drinking gin and tonics. Those guys never got COVID. Okay, so you want to know my gin and tonic story?
Sure.
Okay, do you know where the gin and tonics came from?
No.
I swear to God, I've told this on the podcast.
No, you have not.
It's been like 9 years.
Owen just said, yes, you've told the story. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm old, though. He's young.
So it originated British Navy. They realized if they gave their sailors a ration of alcohol every day, it kept them calm and limited mutinies. So everybody got and so gin was kind of one of the more popular, despite the pirate lore and rum, gin was one of the more popular alcohols that they kept on ships for the sailors. They're going to all of these tropical locations around the British Empire. At the time, malaria is endemic in all those areas. Quinine treats malaria. So they would mix quinine and water to
I remember this
tonic water, mix it with the gin, and then at the same time, you always put a little citrus in there to prevent scurvy.
Yeah.
And so This is also why a slang.
I need all that shit.
Yeah, so this is why a slang term for the British is limeys, is because most countries, France, Spain, etc., would spend enough on their naval personnel. They would buy lemons and oranges because it was considered nice citrus fruit. Limes were the cheap shit. So the British Navy, because they had this huge navy, all these sailors went with limes because it was way cheaper. And so you go with quinine and water mixed with gin, throwing a little splash of lime juice, gin and tonic.
Wow.
I do gin and tonic with a lemon and a lime.
There you go.
And I know
That's called Sprite.
Yeah. I know on that deal, I could always see them talking about having a gin giblet and he's drinking a whatever. I'm like, how do they know I drink gin?
Because I've said it. Yeah, because I've gone because they had you drinking martinis for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, if you want to be John Higgins,
my wife drinks a martini once in a while,
and red wine,
yes.
But I'd always go in there and go, guys, here's the deal: is if you're going to try to be John Higgins, you got to get it right. He drinks gin and tonics, and so because they were always on the like vodka martinis, dirty martinis, shaken not stirred. I'm like, at least know what you're talking about. So I gave them a little ammunition.
Gotcha.
Do you follow your name on Twitter very much?
No, I do not. No, I don't do any of that stuff. I have people that send me this stuff all the time, but I don't follow myself. No.
So I never asked you this before we started to hit record. So I better ask you now. Is there anything that's off limits tonight?
Not really.
Okay.
No,
all right.
If you feel uncomfortable,
I'll let you know.
You're at a safe space, John. You're at a safe space.
We've had plenty of guests. No, let's not go there.
Yeah,
that's within the rules. You can say that.
I get it.
So you just got back from Houston. You did the San Diego State
Florida
Atlantic game.
Yeah.
Buzzer beater.
Yeah.
Probably the best game of the Final Four. Let's start with Houston. That stadium, it looked massive. That looked like one of the biggest crowds I've ever seen. Do you get nervous before a game anymore?
Not really. No. You get like, when you walk in, you pinch yourself and say, golly, I'm working the Final Four, and I don't so much anymore, especially after I have a couple of gin and tonic.
Don't say that, because that'll get you.
No, the night before.
Okay.
Yeah, I do that night before. So,
you started. Let's see, you were in Kansas City. For the regional? You were out west for the first
Sacramento,
2 games.
then Kansas City, then Houston.
I think people always wonder how do they select for the NCAA tournament, and how do you move up? So how do you go from the first, second round to the Sweet 16? Because I think there's so many people out there who don't think there's a grading system or whatever. How does one move up throughout the tournament? What goes up? What's the process?
There's a basketball committee of, I don't know, there's 15, 16 people on a basketball committee. They have certain sites like the first and second round. They'll send 2-3 guys there. They'll have 4 NCAA regional guys that have different parts of the country, and then they'll have the supervisors also of each league is assigned somewhere. It's the first weekend, the first weekend, which is the first round, second round. They'll have somebody in the first 4 also in Dayton. So there's the head guy. And then they'll have all these basketball committee, then the regional guys. So there's a big grading system that goes into how they select guys. Now, some of it has to do with, I've worked so many Final Fours, I've worked so many NCAA tournaments. There's that goes into how you get graded. Whether you're a crew chief,
like an experience factor.
So if you're a crew chief or not. If you're a newbie, if you're one of those new guys, you usually will work a 116 game with a crew chief and then another guy that's in the next level down from there. So, I always say you can work your way out of the tournament. You can't work your way into the tournament as far as moving forward. If you screw up a game in the first, second round, you may not you won't go to the regional round, the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. You can work your way out of the tournament, you can't work your way into the tournament.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I remember the first time we ever interviewed you. It was on Sound Off. It was after the Michigan State game, and you knew right then you weren't going to go on. Was that an Elite Eight or was that a Sweet 16?
That was an Elite Eight game.
Yes,
it was down in Texas.
And
one with the foot on the line.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you told me after you knew so that game was over. I'm not going to the Final Four. I mean, but it happens, right? I mean,
it happens. Yeah. And the thing is, it was a hard play. We got to play right, and I was with Jimmy Burr on the game, and Jimmy Burr is one of those guys that he's a great official. He's a 5-10 time NCAA Final Four guy, and he was going out of that game. Mark and I were not going out of that game. Didn't matter what, and it was a hard game, really hard game. But I knew right after that I wasn't going.
When you say hard game, what makes it hard?
The style of play, the decisions that you make at the end of the game, everything, especially nowadays, is so. There's 25 cameras at every game. They can get, we have 6 eyes, and they have 25 cameras that get every single angle that we don't get. So we're going to make some mistakes. So everybody's so critical now that we have to be perfect now. But the style of the play, the two teams playing, the two coaches that are
you get teams that are more physical. Does that
way more physical?
That makes it harder.
Way harder. Certain teams in certain conferences are way different than a West Coast versus a East Coast. They're just, the style of play is way different. Big 12 is extremely hard to play. They're really physical and they're really athletic. Where an ACC or Pac-12 is more up and down type of game. But it's how you move forward. It's a process, and it's a hard process. And I don't know exactly how they do it, but I'm assuming how I said how they move forward is what they do. I don't know.
So how many leagues did you do this year? How many leagues were you in?
Let me see. I did. Okay, Big 12, Big 10, AAC, Missouri Valley, Pac-12, Mountain West, West Coast Conference, Big East. Did I say Big East?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, Big East, Atlantic 10, Big West.
That's 10 leagues already.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Because, we had Kyle DeBuse in here, and Kyle, he's a Big Ten football official. Yeah. He only works Big Ten football games, right? I mean,
they play one day a week.
That's true.
We play every day.
Yeah, that's true. And we're going to get to that because you took some criticism over that, but I want to get to that. Yeah. But he's
Screw them.
I know that, but I want to get into that because I'm going to defend you here.
Thank you.
And I had to on my radio show because they came up, but we'll get to that. How does one work for 10 leagues? I mean, I think people are wondering, because Kyle's employed by the Big Ten Conference. Mm-hmm. You are not employed by a conference. Is that so?
That's correct. So each league has a consortium, and they all, like the Pac-12 has one guy that takes care of 4, 5, 6 leagues.
Okay.
Right? So he takes basically west of Denver, right? And then there's a guy in the center part that takes about Denver to maybe Chicago, and then the Big Ten guy takes Chicago there. Then the ACC, SEC, they take care of their own leagues, and the Big East is back. But so they all have their own consortiums. Now the SEC has their own consortium, where it has SEC, Atlantic Sun.
Conference USA in that?
No, Conference USA is in the Midwest area with the Big 12. It's Big 12, Conference USA, Missouri Valley Conference, Southland, Ohio Valley. That's that consortium. There's about 5 consortiums around the country that basically dictate all the leagues, all the schools around the country. So that's how I've worked with those guys, and so they put me on their staff, and they do part of that. Not that I work for very many games for them, but what they can do is say, hey, I got referee A that's worked the Final Four, and he's on our staff. So I got 10 guys that work the Final Four or worked in the regional or what have you. So that's kind of a feather in their cap.
Okay.
So that's I do my own thing. So I'll go out west for a week and work for them for 7 days in a row, or not necessarily 7 days in a row, but I'll work 5 out of the 7, 6 out of the 7 days. So I'll go out there. Once I come back, I stay here for a week, and then I may do 7 days here. I'll go wherever I need to go down here, Texas, Oklahoma, Chicago, that area. So I work from different consortiums, usually by the week basis.
So at the end of the day, you're a 1099 employee.
1099 employee, yeah.
So, and that's where I'm going to ask you this, because Clete Blakeman was in here a couple weeks ago. He's employed by the National Football League. Yeah. He belongs to a union, and he gets, benefits and all that stuff. What would you rather be, a 1099 employee, or would you rather be an employee of the NCAA or a league where you get benefits and all that other stuff? I mean,
well, the younger I was, so I'm not much at one time, I would like to be an independent guy. Now, the older I'm getting, put me as an employee. I'd like to have to pay my insurance and my taxes and put me on your retirement plan. I'll do that. I'd do that now. That's a great question. It's so different, though. I don't know how they would do that, how they structure that with being, so many different leagues. That's a great question. I like where I'm at now because I have the freedom to do what I want to do, and I'm independent of everybody else, like every official is now, and I can still run my business.
So all the NC2A officials function like that, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the younger guys, the guys are just getting in first 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years. I can dictate my schedule. Those guys can't do that. They have to take what they get and be happy with what they get, because they may get 5, 10, 15, 20 games. That's what they get. I can say, okay, I'm coming out west for that week. This is a week. So November 10th through the 17th, you have these dates. Put me where you need to put me, and that's fine.
So you're 62 now, right?
No, hell no.
61?
Yeah.
Okay, you're soon to be 62.
Right.
No, I'm asking this because how old were you when you called your first game?
Division I?
Yeah.
28.
So 28.
I don't know. That was in 1988 or 27. Yeah, I don't know how old it is. I'm not doing the math right now. I've had 3 gin and tonics.
And you're going to have more before the show. But I mean, that first year, how many games did you do?
I did 4.
Where was your first game?
My first game was at Drake. I sat on the interstate in an ice storm.
Were you like, I'm not going to make it?
I wasn't. What time I showed up? I showed up the game was at 7. I showed up at 6:30. They had a sub there already for me. I was working with a guy by the name of Mike Brady, and I don't remember the other two. Another guy from out in the Cincinnati. And I was sitting on the interstate I-80 for 3 hours in an ice storm. I'm like, fuck. And we didn't have cell phones at that time. I was shitting my pants thinking, I'm going to miss my very first game I ever have a chance to referee. I finally get there, and then Davey Phillips was the baseball umpire at one time.
Yep.
Major League Baseball umpire. He was the boss in the Missouri Valley Conference that hired me. They had a phone call. They talked to somebody, said, I know you've been on the road, because I left early. I'm like, I am not missing this game, because it was a snow and ice.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's your first game. So I get there, and they say, you don't have to work on it. I'm like, fuck that. I am working it. So I worked the game, and that was my very first game. Now, he lasted only 2 or 3 years, and then Jim Bain took it over, and that's where my schedule went from, 3, 4, 5 games, and he didn't know me from Adam.
Yeah.
And the reason how I got to go from 3, 4, 5 games, and the next year I had 15 games in the Missouri Valley was somebody didn't show up at Northern Iowa. And I did the game, and Bain was there, Jim Boomer Bain. I was favorite referee of all time. You remember Jim?
Yeah, I do.
Bain?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they hated him. They, of course, God rest his soul. But
he got on with your dad really well, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because your dad had him, or he had your dad doing the scouting at most Creighton games.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, my dad did the observing of the referees.
Yeah.
And my dad hated referees. He was a basketball coach and football coach. He hated, seriously. The time I took him to the Drake game, and he was just killing me the whole way. I'm said, Dad, you do this for you keep doing this, you can't go to any games with me.
So was that first Drake game? Was that at the old Vets Auditorium?
Vets Auditorium. Oh yeah.
Was that Rudy coaching at the time? Who was coaching at the time?
No, it was what's that guy's name?
Gary Garner.
Gary Garner.
Wow.
Gary Garner. Yep. I think it was Gary Garner.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm refereeing that game. So anyway, 3-4 years later, the deal at Northern Iowa, Boomer Bain shows up. I tee up the coach, and the coach.
You're known to do that. You know, Iowa. And why is it always in the state of Iowa you're calling tees?
I'm not sure.
I got it. You know, Iowa fans.
I love Iowa.
They hate your ass.
I know they hate me.
And you've got a nice place at Panorama.
Yeah,
but Hawkeye fans hate you. I mean, Hawkeye fans despise you.
I know it. I haven't worked a game for them for 10 years.
He teed up Fran McCaffrey against Northern Iowa. Okay.
Wait a second. I got the second one. I threw him out. I didn't
how long
do the
ago
first
was
one.
this?
This was 10 years ago.
This is his first year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking it's like, well, shit, McCaffrey hasn't been there that long.
No, he's been there. God, this is year 13.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're playing at Northern Iowa. John throws him out.
I guess I don't look at like 20.
Rob, I do my show in Des Moines, and I talk about John. John's been on my show in Des Moines.
Yeah.
I name drop all the time, and every time I name drop, Hawkeye fans go crazy. They go absolutely crazy. I mean, they hate John almost as much as Kentucky fans.
I don't. If they do, we haven't seen it at Lake Panorama.
Well, because you got Jamie Pollard as a neighbor who's just keeping you company.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you've done a couple Nebraska games. You've done a Creighton game too. You've done a UNO game. What's the rules when it comes to doing teams in your own backyard?
Well, like I didn't go to Creighton. My daughter went to Creighton and graduated from there. So there's not really. I mean, there's a rule if you went there and you graduated from there that you shouldn't do their games, especially league games. I didn't go to Nebraska. My kid went to Nebraska and graduated from there, but I didn't do their games. Why he was a manager for
Doc, right?
For Doc, yeah, and I didn't do their games at that time, and I'll do them now just because I don't really have any ties.
Yeah,
I don't do any games at Creighton during the regular season or during conference season just because my business is here. I have family here. I have friends here. Just think if I was a guy in that game of the Creighton game in the NCAA tournament, I would have to sell my house. We'd be moved. Well, I'd be moved. I wouldn't be here right now.
Well,
because you wouldn't have you would not have made the call.
Probably.
Well, now that now that we've like allowed the elephant to come in, let's go there.
Okay.
Well, no, I guess my question is, I don't. Trav would just flat out ask you, would you have made that call?
I just did.
You kind of did. I guess my question would be, did you want me to open your beer for you?
I did, but I'll figure it out.
You got two hands.
Ask away.
You want me to get that for you?
Oh, I got it.
You sure?
I got it.
Got it.
Wow.
I'm almost a little surprised. It's not.
Is Rob trying to tell us something? Look how tiny that thing is.
Hey, when everything else you have is big, you don't need a large bottle. Anyway.
Where are we going here?
I don't know.
Okay, so let's go back to the call in the Creighton game, and I think everybody knows what one we're talking about there at the end. So I've heard like a handful of schools of thoughts, and I guess my question is, what school of thought are you? There's the school of thought that says, as you see a call, as you see a play, as you see something happen in the game, it shouldn't matter when it happens, what the circumstances are, etc. If you see a foul and it's a foul, it's truly a foul, you call the foul. There's also, it seems to be the school of thought that, you know what, there's kind of some circumstance that dictates this. And some of the circumstance can be, hey, we're going to call kind of a loose game tonight. We're going to let both teams play. We know both these teams are physical teams. So we're going to let them bang against each other a little bit here. I mean, because I do see that in football where you see officials who are like, hey, we're gonna let the wide receivers push off a little bit. We're going to let kind of some almost sort of picks happen. Mm-hmm. We're going to let the defensive backs get a little more physical, but we're going to let it go on both sides. The offense wants to get a little more physical than they should. We're going to do it. Defense can do it too. Same thing applies to basketball. Mm-hmm. You get some teams that are way more physical. If you're going to let them do that, is that a valid school of thought to say, hey, you see that call, we're not going to call it, even if it truly is a foul, because we decided these guys they're going to be a little more physical? Or can circumstances play into that? Hey, end of the game, it's a tight game. You gotta let them play. You don't want to let officiating calls affect stuff unless it's truly egregious. I mean, if he takes him out and it like blatantly affects the shot, you got to call it, I guess. I mean, I get that, but what's the school of thought here?
It's a great question.
It's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question.
It is a little bit. I mean,
So my if you ever watched me referee for a long period of time, I'll let guys play to a certain point. I will talk to them, but once I start the game a certain way, and I usually start it the same way every single game, at least that's what I try to do. I have to end that game that same way. So, the loaded question is that a foul? Is it not a foul? Is it egregious or is it not egregious? The answer to that question would be, if you haven't called that the whole game, you can't call that at the end. The one question, people have asked me this. That night, my phone blew up like you can't believe, especially being from Omaha, right?
I know Trav was one of them.
No, he actually texted me first. He's like, my phone's fucking blowing up. We talked like 2 minutes after that game ended.
And at first, I didn't know what happened. And then I saw the replay. I'm like, oh, shit. So my if he was to do it over again, I would probably say he would probably pass on that play. I haven't talked to him. I don't know anything about it, about if they've talked about it. I know I've talked to other officials. The one thing I would say is if he didn't put a whistle on that play, would we be talking about that play?
No.
Would San Diego State be talking about that play? Would Creighton would anybody be talking about the play?
In the sense of, holy cow, how did he not call that foul?
Right. The answer is
probably not.
No.
Yeah.
The answer is no. Nobody would be talking about that play. So if I haven't called that for 39 minutes and 59 seconds, I'm trying not to call that at the end. So if it's a tie game,
there's a consistency in what you've been.
You also got to think about the time and the score. It's a tie game. What's so bad about if there wasn't anything, like you said, egregious, because he come to the floor and then he jumps to the left. If you watch him go to the basket and then he comes straight down and then he jumps to the left. It's not like in the air he got moved and went to the left. He came to the floor and jumped to the left, which these kids are, they flop, they do all that shit all the time. And we have to make that decision whether or not it's a foul or it's a flop or whatever, which I hate to flop. But so on that particular play, if it's a tie game, probably not put a whistle on the play. If it's a 2-point game, guess what? You could put a whistle on the play. Nobody's saying that wasn't a foul. Nobody's saying that wasn't a foul.
See, and that's the thing.
2-point game.
Yeah, everybody says the foul happened technically.
Yeah, but that's the benefit of you're right. That's the benefit of slow-mo, right? I mean, you can watch it over and over. I think in real time, I remember I was watching with Owen and his girlfriend and my wife, and we're all watching it, and we're like, they just called a foul there? At first, I'm like, what was the foul? Then when you watch it, you're like, okay, but we're all like, you don't make that call there. I mean, there's no harm in going to overtime. Most people were shocked that was
time
called.
And score. You got to think about time and score. In officiating, one of the things you do as far as a as a group, you got to get together and you talk about style play. You have one team that doesn't foul at all, and you have one team that does foul at all. They foul a lot, right? Are they really aggressive defensively? So you have to talk about that in your pregame. And, a lot of coaches, referees, they think, if you're even at fouls, you've done a good job. You've evened, the playing field. Well, if one team is really aggressive, like in the top 1, 2, 3% of causing fouls, and the other team is in top 2, 3% not fouling, if it's 11-11, that's like, I'm talking about in long, like 30, 35 games worth of stuff. So obviously there's a tendency for one team to foul and one team not to foul. So when it's 11-11 or 12-12 or 15-15 or 20-20,
you've completely penalized that team that doesn't foul.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So when a team's aggressive, you're going to have, I've had games where there's, I don't know what that Kansas West Virginia game was like.
Oh God, I was with you. Remember that?
Yes, you were.
So that was Owen's college trip to KU.
It was.
We went down with you and JJ.
We threw it at my man.
Yes,
Huggy.
yes, and he tossed, but the fouls were horrible.
They were out of whack.
It was way out of. It was like West Virginia had like 20 fouls. Kansas had 2.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, but the free throws were way out of whack. The funny thing about that,
I'm gonna fix your mic, by the way.
Okay,
keep going.
There's an independent group of people that came and did the breakdown of the game, and they said, well, the only thing that you guys missed was on West Virginia. We could have 4 more fouls on West Virginia. Like, okay,
you undercalled it.
Yeah, so. And they were aggressive, and that's just how they play. They're and Huggy, he that's how they play every single game. They're aggressive. Their guards are really tough. All their players are tough, and you know that. And they've gotten better and better and better as far as legalities go. But that was just one of those games. It was crazy out of whack. Of course, I took it from the West Virginia fans and had a box of crap that was sent to my house.
So hold on, really? They sent a box of shit to your house?
Oh yeah. A box of shit.
So
did I ever send you that from the lady fan from Kansas from Omaha that called our office? You ever hear that video?
No.
Oh my God. She thinks I'm the worst human being in the world.
This message is for John Higgins, the referee. Well, I guess I say the so-called referee. You might want to tell that dumbass with his ugly frosted tips in his hair that you don't stand out on the court with your arm around another player from another team like he was doing with Noel for K-State tonight. I mean, he's the worst ref, and everybody in the country hates him. I see why Kentucky fans left you all the bad reviews. I guess you think if you're bad in one job, you're probably bad in another. He is a piece of shit ref.
And she's from Omaha.
Oh, yeah.
And she's a Kansas fan.
Oh, huge Kansas fan. Huge Kansas fan. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a fan base that likes you?
No. They all think, no. But you got to understand something. It doesn't matter where you go as a referee. If you're well-known and you've been around for a long time, they think you cheat for this school, then that school that they think you cheat for, they think you cheat for that school, and then you cheat for that school and that school and that school. They all think the same thing.
So what's the worst, though? I mean, if you had to pick a school where people, they're on you.
You realize nobody does this in football.
I won't say that. I won't answer that question.
Because it'll
I'll go there, they'll kill me.
Could be another box of shit showing up.
Yeah. No, I'll have more than that.
So somebody sent you a box of shit.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, was it dog or human feces?
I don't know. I don't want to know.
He's down there like, we're going to analyze this.
No, there's been a lot of things sent to my house.
Wow.
Yeah, office too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, and that, I mean, because technically you are a public figure, right? I mean, I would say name recognition and body and face recognition, you might be number one in the NCAA. I mean, you have nicknames, Hollywood. What are some other nicknames besides Hollywood?
Beach Boy.
Beach Boy.
Yeah, whatever. Baywatch. Baywatch is the biggest one. The guy down Southwest Missouri State. You've seen that in my office. He did posters of Baywatch. He says, "Hey, great hair, so calls."
Yeah.
You ever seen that one? Oh,
That's outstanding that somebody puts that much effort in.
Oh my God, he has like 5 or 6 different posters of me on a.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because the faux, you got faux Pelini. His fake Twitter account is John Higgins Hair. John Higgins Hair is because everybody thinks he fake tans. I don't think you go to the
never
tan.
done it. Never
But
done it.
like
never.
faux Pelini
They think I screw with
made
my
a
hair.
made a faux.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Faux
not.
Pelini made a John Higgins Hair Twitter page.
No.
But that kind of.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
so John has his own Twitter account. It's called John Higgins Hair, and it's got like 4,000 followers. I mean, and I don't know how active he is anymore, but because John's got he's got the blonde tips.
And they think I like color my hair. I've never touched my hair in my life.
You
can call my gal here in town that's 75 years old. She's never touched her in her life.
I'm going to start calling you Sunshine after the guy from Remember the Titans.
I'm just happy. I'm just happy I have hair at 61 years old.
Yeah, I'm a dozen years younger. I'm 10 years younger, and I don't have much hair.
I don't have any either. I mean, wow. And the reason he gets that is because many people don't know this. I do, and I'm going to bring it up here. Before John was the most famous college basketball referee in America, 9-time Final Four referee, he was Rob. This can bring back memories to your childhood. He was a Lagoons model.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I had Lagoon.
So
everybody had Lagoons back in the day.
Yeah. And if you don't know what Lagoons are, Lagoons were back in the mid '80s. Just like beach shorts, right? I mean, they were
Hawaiian shorts.
Yeah, Hawaiian shorts. Yeah. How'd you get that? How'd you get into modeling?
Well, I just kind of fell into it, and then I modeled with Carol's girlfriend.
That's Carol's your wife.
Yep, Carol's my wife, and her girlfriend Amy. I modeled with her, and it was the Kofods. Was it
that Bart?
No, it wasn't Bart. It was Mike Kofod and Ryan. And Ryan was from, I can't think of his first name. He was a couple years older than me. Those two started Lagoons together. And he said, hey, you got to come. You got to help us out. And we did these runway things at Peony Park back in the day.
Oh, my God.
Oh, remember that?
Yeah.
So I started there, and then I did the Brandeis ad and did the.
I knew people in Lincoln who went up I grew up in Lincoln, so I knew people who would come up from Lincoln and work that model.
Oh, yeah. And
there was a girl I went to high school with who did that.
Then the Pomida ads, and I did all that stuff.
You ever go to like New York and stuff like that?
Yeah, we went, did their shows around several places around the country, and I didn't, after about 2-3 years of it, and I did stuff for a guy here in town. Did pictures with David Radler. He's still in town. He lives out in Bennington Lakes, and so that was basically my 2 or 3 year career of modeling for my
Playgirl ever call and say, come on out?
No. Yeah. There's prerequisites for that.
Oh man.
I'm an Irish Catholic there, brother.
How many games did you do this year?
I don't know. I don't count. You better ask
Bullshit.
Carol.
You did too.
I don't know. I swear to God.
Give us a
I don't know.
ballpark.
90.
Somewhere between 90 and 100.
Okay. So this leads me to the question. Because you can't go officiate at Ohio State anymore because you made news again. Mm-hmm. You threw out Chris Holtman from Ohio State. Mm-hmm. People said it was egregious. You shouldn't have done it. And you were criticized because you'd worked 6 straight days of basketball, and they said you were too fatigued and tired because you were on the West Coast and went to Columbus, Ohio. Your thoughts on working back-to-back games? I have an opinion. I'm going to give my opinion, but okay. The criticism you took for working 6 days in a row.
I know guys that work 14, 15, 16 days in a row. That happens all the time. So it's like if you can ask coaches will say, I'll take a tired John Higgins rather than a new guy that I don't know anything about, and whether or not he's as good as if not. So, my question, my answer to him is I work 2 hours a day. So if I work 7 days, that's 14 hours. Yeah, you got travel and that kind of stuff involved. And I get it. I went from the West Coast to there, but my game time got changed on the West Coast. That's why I took a red eye to get to that game. But I didn't do anything out of line. If any official and you can ask majority of the people that watched it and watched and that are in the know, I didn't do anything out of line. I was just adjudicating the rules that are written, and that's our job. I don't care. Doesn't matter who the coach is. I don't care. I don't. It's not personal. I don't carry it over to the next game. I don't care if they obey by the rules. No problem. I have no issues with anybody. But when they're out of line, and if it wasn't me, if it was Joe Blow over here that threw him out, nobody would say a thing. It just happened to be that it was me. And being a higher profile national type official, that's why it kind of blew up, and that's what happened that whole deal.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to the work 6 days in a row.
Well, okay, think about this. Okay, you're a doctor.
You work 6 days in a row? And how many hours a day do you work? 8, 10 hours, 12 hours?
Well, hold on. Go back to
8 to 12.
Okay,
yeah.
but go back to when you were an intern or worked at UNMC. What were those days like? Because you were telling me you'd spend 20 to 24 hours.
Once to twice a week, you'd pull like a 30 to 36 hour shift.
That's a doctor, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. A doctor.
I don't think they're supposed to do that anymore. Could still do it when I was going through training. But.
Okay, but
Well, no, that's the thing. I'm sitting here going like, now I understand. There is a mental and emotional intensity involved in what you do, but it's 2 hours a day.
Right.
And John,
you tell me you're going to do something incredibly intense for 2 hours, but I'm going to get the rest of the work day to
relax,
prep work, review work, relaxation. I can do anything for 2 hours a day.
In fact, Rob, it's funny you say that. So I flew on one of those planes that I laid straight down on.
Yeah.
I took the red eye. I slept more that night. And then when I got to my hotel, I had a better night's sleep flying, because when you're at a hotel on any given night and you got to get up the next morning because you got a 6 o'clock flight, you don't sleep that night.
Not really.
You're up, your eyes open, like,
what time is it?
It's 4. I got to get up at 4:30. You do that all night. So this night, I don't have to worry about it. I slept from, my flight left at 11.
I'll wake up when the plane lands. Got nothing to worry about.
It's exactly what I did. I fell asleep before I do it all the time. I fall asleep before the plane takes off. I wake up when the plane basically is landing.
That's like heaven.
No, it is. And you're like,
you got a little white noise, little.
Even if I'm sitting up in a seat, I do that. So I do that. I go to the hotel. I sleep 2-3 hours on that particular day. Then we went to the game. I didn't think anything about it.
Well, it's interesting because on my radio show, people know that I know you, so they brought it up. I said, listen, I know you all think travel's a big deal. I don't think traveling is that big of a deal, because like when you're on the West Coast, if I know you correctly, your games are kind of, you can drive to most of them, right?
You're within.
And I said, if he works a 2-hour game, I go, it's not like he's working during the day, guys. He goes back to a hotel room and he literally relaxes and decompresses.
Yeah, all day.
Yeah. So I'm like,
in fact, I'm bored sitting in my room like, okay, I got to do something. I got to get some exercise. I go down to the weight room or do something, because otherwise I can't, I'll take a nap for an hour or two, maybe. Just laying there.
I mean, firemen go 7 on, right? 7 on, 24 hours a day. I mean, that's what they do. Cops will work.
How about basketball coaches? You think they take days off during basketball season? No. They are on 15, 18 hours a day. And you can ask them all. Go ask the Creighton, go ask them.
Dude, any coaches.
Yes.
Are football.
Dude,
they're all
football
the same
coaches.
Thing. They're there all the time.
That's 5 hours of sleep a night during the season.
But see, that's just people wanting to make an excuse. They don't. They need to blame somebody.
It wasn't our team's
fault. Yeah.
Got to blame somebody. Well, might as well blame the referees.
So I mean, how many coaches would you? What's your relationship like with coaches? Is it fairly good? I mean, I know there's some that isn't so good.
No, it's good for the majority of the coaches. It's good. They may not like me, but they respect me, I believe. And I know that for a fact. And that's all you can ask for as a referee. They may not like you. They may not like anything about you, but if they respect you and how you referee the game, I think that's all you look for as an official.
Yeah, I mean, do you ever have coaches call you after a game? They say, "Hey, help me out here, John."
Not necessarily. Every once in a while, you might get that. Hey, what did I do when you've teed them up, or what do my players need to do? Every once in a while, you get that. Not too often, but majority of the time, you don't get that.
How many more years are you going to do this?
I don't know. Good question. So there's, depends. I may have other opportunities in different aspects of basketball. We'll see.
NBA?
No, not anything with NBA. No.
Did you ever
college?
How does that work? Could you have ever gone Cleat was I
could have done it 30 years ago. Well, when my kids were Colin's 32 and Merrill's 30 now, and JJ's 16. Of course, he wasn't around when all that was happening with possible NBA stuff, but I was asked to go do that, and I think my kids were maybe 4 and 2, and you're going to be gone 25, 26 days a month. Not work as many games probably as you would as a college guy, but to be gone from your family and be gone 8 months, 9 months when you're in college basketball.
That's a long season.
In college basketball, you're gone 4.5 to 5 months at the very most. If you work from November 7th through the Final Four, it's 4.5 to almost 5 months. NBA just takes it like we'll be watching NBA playoffs until
mid-June.
Yeah. So that's a long season. They start before and end after.
And I'm sure, the truth is, your ninth Final Four, you've done the final game, you've done everything you can do, right?
Yeah.
And so if you look for different opportunities, whether that's being, one of those league guys that runs a consortium or whatever that looks like. But, the good thing is you've done everything you can do. And let's be honest, you're no spring chicken anymore, so...
What? The hell?
Well, what I mean by that is...
looks like he's the healthiest guy.
I bet you worry more now than you did 20 years ago, run up and down the court going, is my knee going to go? Am I going to turn?
No, absolutely you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely you do.
You've had a hip replaced.
Oh, yeah. You didn't. Most people don't know that, but they do now.
They do now. Thanks, Rob.
I just violated a HIPAA law, Rob.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I know guys.
Actually, no, you didn't.
I didn't?
You're not.
No,
doctor.
because you don't work in the healthcare.
Okay, good.
Responsible.
Wait a second.
Hip replacement.
There's probably at least 10 guys I know have had both their knees replaced or hips replaced.
Really?
Refereeing college basketball. Refereeing the NBA, too.
Man, that's a lot of running on a knee.
Yeah.
On a replaced knee.
So I know a guy that had both his knees replaced at the same time.
Yeah, we do that every so often. It's not a lot, but we'll do it. In April,
he came back in November, and he refereed 85 games that year. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is.
Now, his wife is a doctor, too. So I don't know if he gives him all kinds of drugs or not. But
he's loading him up.
Rob, I'm telling you, you would know. You couldn't tell Alec that he's had any of his knees replaced. Couldn't tell.
Wow.
Actually, one of the surgeons I worked with, and he's mostly retired now, he actually had both his knees replaced, and he runs marathons. Which is mind-blowing to me, and most everybody tells me he shouldn't do it, but he feels great doing it, so there you go.
I think I know who that is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here, because you did 10 different leagues this year. I know you didn't do the SEC, and I know you didn't do the ACC.
I was one and done in the SEC.
Wonder why that is.
Good question.
What's the best league?
Oh boy, this last year it was the Big 12.
Now, when you say best,
there's toughest league.
There's this. Who has the best
guys?
From top to bottom.
When Travis asked you what's the best league, what did you think of in your mind?
In my mind, I think the toughest league, top to bottom, that would go in and play everybody really hard, really tough, is the Big 12. That's the toughest league, and everybody will, You know, people hate the Big East. The Big East is really good too. I mean, really good. From top, maybe not.
The Big East has the best coaches. I mean, now that Pitino's in the Big East, I mean, look at the coaches that are. I mean, Danny Hurley has a national title. Rick Pitino, Sean Miller's there.
Yeah.
Thad Matta's there. Greg McDermott. I mean, you look at the Big East coaches, you're like, this league is stacked.
It's stacked. It's loaded.
Yes,
it's loaded. And you look at the way too early top 10. They have UConn. They have Marquette.
Creighton
in the top. They have all those teams in the top 5, 6, 7 teams. It's like the old Big East league where you had Georgetown and Villanova and St. John's and all those teams that were always at the top. But the last year or two, the Big 12 has been unbelievably hard.
Here's the question I want to ask when you get asked what's the best league. What is the league that?
Also, I always say, I always say the best league is a referee is the league that pays the most. But go ahead.
Well, that was going to be my
next
question. As a referee, if you're like, oh God, it's so much easier working these games in terms, and it can be anything, coach's style of play, or I mean, whatever. What's the best league to work?
Where you're kind of hidden. And nobody knows because everybody's sleeping out west. Out west.
So you're in Albuquerque doing a New Mexico game.
Yeah, well, there are only a few people to see that because it starts at 8 or 9 o'clock at night there, and it's 11 or 12.
It's just there's no pressure.
No, there's not as much. I mean, there's a pressure as you like. I mean, the pit is unbelievable. That place is. That's one of the top places in the country to go and referee.
What's the pit?
Are you serious?
I'm not I'm a wrestling guy.
Oh my
Come
golly.
on.
So it's where North Carolina State.
The most famous basketball game maybe ever played.
Besides the Villanova, North Carolina game.
Okay. The most famous basketball game that you see every March Madness. It's where North Carolina State beat Phi Slamma Jamma and Jim Valvano runs all around the court. He won North Carolina State won the national title in the pit.
That's the pit. That's when it wasn't in a
Where's it at?
Dome.
Albuquerque. University of New Mexico.
Okay. There we go.
It's an unbelievable arena. The fans love basketball. It's like one of the greatest small places in the world in college basketball to go referee. They are intense.
Have you
feeling like an idiot here? You guys are talking about this, and I'm like,
that's all right.
I know football, I know wrestling.
Okay.
God, I even know track a little bit. I'm like, what's the pit?
Yeah.
Have you done a game at the Dean Dome? And have you done a game at Cameron Indoor?
Yes.
I know you've done plenty of games at Fog Allen.
Yep.
Of all of them, and Iowa State's up there. People don't understand how good a Hilton the Coliseum is if it gets loud.
It's one of the best.
And I don't think you're going to offend anybody here. What's the best college basketball atmosphere you've been in?
I would probably say Fog Allen would be 1, and then Cameron Indoor would be 2. Would be the top 2.
Yeah.
And then you could get to. There's a bunch of them that are after that. Used to be when Bob Knight was at Indiana. That was unbelievable. You got that feeling when you walked in the arena that Bob Knight, he's there. He's, you just had that. It had that aura about it that kind of intimidated you when you walked in with Bob Knight.
I will say this, and I've been fortunate to be in a lot of basketball arenas. I agree that Fog Allen's the best one I've ever been in. And Creighton fans are going to get mad at me for saying this. In its heyday, when they were winning, Wichita State is a great place to watch a basketball game.
It's one of the best. I would say it's in the top 7 to 10.
The old Missouri Valley was outstanding.
Yeah, well, but the roundhouse, and you're right on top of the court. And I liked going there to call a game. I hated Wichita State. I despise Greg Marshall. But I'm telling you, Wichita fans know how to do it. They really do know how to do it.
Even when they're not very good, they fill it.
Yeah.
They really do.
You guys go to movies very much?
Never.
No, but I'm going to go to that.
Dude,
that new one.
It's awesome. So I know what you're talking. So what I did yesterday, I took my marketing team. I said, clear your schedules. We're going to do a field day. So we took the whole day off. I took the afternoon. No, I took him to lunch.
Is that premiere yesterday?
Yeah. So I took him to see the movie Air. Rob, this is about
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Yes. which, by the way, you never see Michael Jordan in the whole movie. You see his back, you never see the guy who plays face. It's not really about Michael, but it's very interesting to go see if you are in sales, if you're in marketing, if you're in design, or if you just like a really good story. This is an incredible movie. It really is, because there's a lot of and John, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you have a roofing and siding company, rooferees.com. And he's not can you believe this? John Higgins is not a sponsor of this podcast. Unbelievable.
Well, you've never asked me.
Because you're
wait
a friend.
Wait a second. I've offered that I would be a sponsor.
He's got bunch of angry, spiteful fans.
That's right. He may go.
He doesn't need us.
Yeah.
I don't need so many boxes of shit.
Yeah. I'll say, screw you,
Would you like
Travis.
a box of shit sent to your house?
God damn, who does that?
And Dude, I
Believe me,
use
it
you
happens.
guys. You guys
happens.
have done my roof like parts of the roof, like 2 sections of the roof.
In
Had you guys
addition-
redo some siding for us,
Yeah.
gutter work.
You do fences?
No.
Sorry, Owen. I'm trying.
Stay in your lane.
I look like white trash. I got a fence down out here. I just look really bad. My son loves
Well,
it.
I got a
My
nail gun.
son-
We can, Owen. We can get it taken care of.
And nail
I'll
gun's
come
not going
over.
to solve this.
Is it that bad? A nail will go right through it. Is that what you're saying?
John, the post doesn't even in the ground
doesn't work.
anymore.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's all about taking risk. I mean, it shows you that you have to think outside the box and you have to take risk. And Michael Jordan was going to go to Adidas. Michael Jordan was going to be an Adidas guy. And it just took building a relationship, building trust, and taking a risk. And I'm telling you, it's the first time I was in a theater since COVID. So that's 3 years. And I loved it. Now, is it going to win an Academy Award? No. But it was a really good
It would
movie.
be an interesting backstory, because I remember,
Yes.
well, you're a tiny bit older than us, but I mean, we would have been in middle school when those shoes came out?
So 84. So,
Was that when the shoe came out?
yes, 1984.
I was just finishing
elementary
college.
school.
Yeah, 1984. The highest selling grossing shoe I think Nike had was $3 million a year. They were only running shoes.
Converse was
Converse was huge. By the way, Nike
There
owns
were
Converse
still
now.
guys when I was in high school that we had Jim Edwards, when played basketball at Wesleyan. Jim wore Chuck Taylor.
So
Oh my God!
my daughter has to buy those all the time now.
This was like late 80s.
Oh my God!
So at the time, the highest selling shoe for Nike, and this stressed Phil Knight out, if you go by the movie, was like $3 million a year. The first year the Air Jordan came out, sold $162 million in shoes. Are you ready for this now? As I just belched into the microphone for this beer.
Usually I do that.
Continue today because of the deal, and you have to go see the movie to see how this transpired. The Air Jordan brand produces in passive income to Michael Jordan per year today is $400 million a year.
No way!
So Mike's making $400 million a year.
Passively.
Oh my!
Passively.
Lord.
You have to go see the movie to see how this all transpired.
Wow!
That is a smart decision on his part.
Well, it's a smart decision on Nike.
On Nike's part. Nike was not – Nike's basketball division at the time was like third or fourth.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not good. Not good at all. And that's why I'm saying you really do have to – you got to go see the movie. It's where Ben Affleck's in it. Matt Damon does a really good job in it. And George Raveling actually played a huge part in this.
He did?
Yeah, George Raveling was – did you guys know this? True story. I learned this.
You know who George Raveling is? He was an Iowa coach at one time.
Yeah, so he was at Washington State. He went to Iowa. He recruited. He had Roy Marble.
Really
he
good
had
boy.
Michael Payne, Greg Stokes. He had a really good
I know
group.
who those guys are.
Yeah.
He was the coach who got him there.
Yeah.
Well, then he went to USC after that.
That's right.
But he was an assistant coach on the '84 Olympic basketball team. Bob Knight was the head coach.
Bob Knight was the head coach, yeah.
And so he kind of helped Michael go that way. But here's a story, and
Like go the Nike route.
Go the Nike route. But he did it kind of behind the scenes, passively, and it's a pretty good story. But here's what you learn about. I forgot this about George Raveling. If you look it up, it's true. In 1967, George Raveling volunteered to be security at a speech. When he walked off the stage, he goes, "Hey, that's the greatest speech I've ever heard in my life. Can I have the speech?" The guy gave him the speech. It was Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Wow. George Raveling has the handwritten speech of I Have a Dream. No. Wow. He was offered $3 million for it. He never took it, and he went to Villanova. He donated on long-term loan to Villanova. He never took the money for it.
Wow. And
it's a true story, because is this a movie thing? So I get, I'm Googling this morning. Nope. It's true. Wow. He had the speech.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it really is. So there you go. Little piece. There's some basketball knowledge for you, Rob.
Dude, dropping knowledge.
Well, I try.
I know something I didn't know.
Cleat has a real job. He's a lawyer. Mm-hmm. Kyle DeBuse has been here. He works out at Valmont. You have a real job.
Yes. I met with you a couple weeks ago, or a week ago.
That's true.
In your office.
You were.
I hire you. Does Trevor hire you?
He's done he's done my roof three times, I think.
Yeah, a bunch of times. Yeah, we've done it.
Okay, here's a question. Because Cleat talked about this. How did you get into refereeing? I mean, you mentioned your dad.
Yeah.
Tell me, give us the quick and dirty there.
So, back in my day, not your day, there were freshman teams. So the freshman college.
Okay.
Yeah.
The freshman team.
Nebraska had a freshman.
They had a freshman team one time.
Football had my freshman year was the last year the football team had a freshman team.
So they had a freshman team. They were going to play a junior college team, right?
Yep.
And the referees didn't show up. And I was a junior or senior, and coach said, "Hey, it's $25. We need referees to do this." I'm like, $25?
You're like, hell yeah.
$25 is a lot of beer money. And I drank beer back then. Drank Coors Light because I was a Coors Light rep back in the day.
Is that your NIL?
Yeah, that was my NIL. Yeah. So I didn't get any money. I got Coors Light. No, I did get money to go out to illegally, go buy. No, it wasn't legal. I was of age at that point. So we'd go down to Dickie Dugan's in Buffalo Chips and Kearney and buying. You get $50 and you buy everybody Coors Lights. That was our job. It was a great job. So I can't say what else we did with that money and that job. Anyway, God, where was I going?
You were getting ready to ref.
So anyway, I'm like, shoot, yeah. So me and another guy put our hands up and we refereed the game. Like, God, that was not bad. It wasn't too hard. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know to lift.
It's extra conditioning.
So I had no idea. So I finished school and I came back to Omaha. A buddy of mine, Terry Anzaldo, and then he got me into like rec league. Him and a guy by the name of Paul Castor, Whitey Castor. He's been retired and he's for a long time. He got me into refereeing rec ball, high school ball. Like within a couple of years, I'm working the Metro Conference, working the West Side prep game, and so Paul Castor told me go to a referee camp. They have all these camps now. So I went to one referee camp, and this Davey Phillips, the Major League Baseball umpire, was the supervisor for Missouri Valley Conference. And I went to it, and I got a phone call, and I got hired from that tryout.
How do you get there now? Do you got to know somebody, or do you got to be good?
You got to be good, and these camps, like if you go to camp now, there's 100 guys. They all look the same for the most part. They're all fit, and they're put together. They can run. They're young. You have to know somebody that is in the know a little bit to get you in front of the right people.
But you know what, John? And if you go to my Twitter page at Travis Creates, I've got it pinned up there. It's an interview I did with John about less than a year ago. And it's probably one of the most listened to podcasts on KXNO.com. Nobody's getting into officiating anymore because you had a coach and players verbally attack you at an AAU game. John's a Final Four ref doing an AAU game because he's
I remember reading the story on God. I think it was on the LinkedIn page.
Yes, and nobody's getting into it anymore because they don't want to put up with that shit.
No, and who wants to at $25 a game? The young kids, and you go to the games, you hear the parents, and it's embarrassing to watch the parents and see the parents and the coaches.
Well, I'm at enough wrestling and high school football games.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, the parents are the worst.
They're the worst. I've been at my son's games, basketball, baseball, football, and I've told a couple of them, you don't know the rule. Shut up. And one of them when JJ was a younger kid, was in grade school, I told a guy that, and this guy, and I've told you the story before, where the guy, I was going to go work the Iowa State-Kansas game that night, and during the day, I was at his game up in Sioux Falls, and I had enough of a parent on our team. He's going crazy on the referees, and the referee said they're called 100% right. And I said, you need to stop. You need to shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. And he said, what do you know about basketball? So that night, and I said, so my wife grabs me, said, stop. And I was ready to go crazy on him. So that night, that afternoon, I left, went to do my game at Kansas at Iowa State. And it's on ESPN. And all the kids are running around the hotel, and then they get watching the game on the TV, and they're like, oh, hey, JD, there's your dad. And I obviously I wasn't there. So the guy just kind of melted like, oh, he might know a little bit about basketball. Yeah. So.
You played at Kearney State too, didn't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For Tom Kropp?
No, I played for Jerry Heiser.
Okay.
Yeah. Tom Kropp was, he probably came in. He was a co-coach with Jerry Heiser.
Okay.
Now, I played pickup ball with Tom Kropp. That guy is insanely the most competitive human being in the world. You ever heard? Tom Kropp
know who
is?
Tom Kropp.
So he went to Nebraska originally in football.
Yeah.
And after the first week, it wasn't for Tom Kropp. He's one of the best athletes in the state of Nebraska ever. He was crazy. He's 245 pounds during football season. He'd be I think he was a fullback or halfback, linebacker. He'd kill everything. He'd go play basketball and he'd score 45. And when I was a little kid, my dad and his dad, Bill Kropp, were not best friends, but they were really good friends. So Cathedral was number 1 or 2, and Aurora's obviously 1 or 2. And they went out there and played him. I watched Tom Kropp hit a shot at half court to put it to overtime. And Cathedral ended up beating Tom Kropp's team back when my brother Mike played, and a guy by the name of Hillary Howard. And so back in that day, Tom Kropp was the guy in the whole state. So, Tom Kropp was unbelievably. We'd play at lunch hour. We'd play basketball to 100 by ones. And this is when he played. No, seriously, we would play pickup games, and this is when he was out of college. He's playing in the pros. He would dive after balls like it was the 7th game of the NBA playoffs. He played with the Bulls and the Bullets, Chicago Bulls and Washington Bullets at that time. He was that guy was one unbelievable athlete.
There was an on switch and an off switch.
But it was never turned off.
There's no dimmer. There's no in between.
No, he's got no off switch. Now, he does now because he's 70 years old or plus, and he's got bad knees and bad back and all that stuff. But that guy was an animal.
It came up during the women's Final Four. And by the way, the women's game is elevating quickly, and if they don't get officiating that matches, it's going to be. I mean, that final game. LSU was a better team than Iowa. I'm not going to deny that that day, but the officiating was horrible, and I have no problem saying that. I mean, it looked bad for women's basketball to have officiating like that. This isn't really about that because there was a lot of trash talking too. I try to tell people because you and I have talked about this, but I want to talk about it here. And Rob, you can talk about it on the football field. There's a lot of trash talking in the men's game, right?
Yeah, it's not as much as you think there is, because as an official, I try not let it happen.
Yeah.
At least not that I'm aware of. If I'm aware of it, they're probably going to get a technical foul. At least I at least say something originally, and then after that, if it happens again, it's a technical foul. Like what I saw in that women's game was egregious. It was as bad as I've ever seen. Now, I don't know what happened in the prior games, although I have seen video of of the gal from Iowa.
It's not an apples to apples comparison.
No, none at all. No.
In that setting, though, although the one gal, Reese from LSU, didn't she transfer from Maryland?
From Maryland, yeah.
She and Clark have to have.
There's and they played each other in AAU too.
I didn't know that.
Those two know each other. There's history there.
I think,
I think a lot of people glossed over that, and I'm watching this going like, okay, for a guy that doesn't follow basketball, the fact I knew she was a Maryland transfer.
See, I didn't know her.
And I knew there was history there between the two of them. That was not the first time the two of them had butted heads with each other.
It's interesting because I know Bill Fenley from Iowa State really well, and his biggest complaint about officiating is that when you get to the NCAA tournament, it's not like the men's game where a lot of people you do big games, right? I mean, and so big games get big refs, and there's some familiarity there. It's more regional. You get kind of the same people all the time in the women's game regionally because the money's not as good, and you get the NCAA tournament, and it's not called. You don't know what to expect from these referees. If somebody has you, they know what they're going to get, whether they like it or not. They know what they're going to get.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm backtracking here, and I'm trying to be respectful of your time. We're already over an hour, but football crews in they have the same guys every single night. Same with the NFL. You don't. How hard is that? And do you ever go to halftime and go, hey, you suck right now. You need to step it up. Because you're a crew chief.
Yeah, it happens. Now, not too often, or they know that, okay, I'm screwing this game up. Just stay away. My best line is to guys that I don't think they're up to the responsibility of what we're doing. Is just get the out of bounds, and I'll take care of the rest. Okay, stay away from the coaches. I'll take care of that. Just stay away. Get what your section here that you're supposed to get. Just stay in that section. Just stay in there, and I'll take care of the rest. Otherwise, it can go really south really fast. And that's kind of how I do it. If we're having an issue, I try to not embarrass a guy. Although I have done it in games where I said, "Get the fuck away from that coach." I don't know if I'm supposed to cuss on this thing or not, but no, I've done it. I've done it. Really, believe me, I've done it. And
oh Jesus,
no, I have. I've done it. I'm like, when they get to the point where they piss me off, they're doing something they shouldn't do as a referee. They're going over there and schmoozing with a guy where you had a tough call or you had a technical foul, and they're going over there schmoozing with a coach that you've done that to. That's a no-no in my book. It doesn't happen. And if it happens, you got a problem with me, either in the locker room or on the floor. And that time, it happened on the floor, and the other referee said to me, he goes, "I can't believe you just talked to him like that." I was like, "Sorry."
Well, you're the crew chief, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Wow, that's absolutely insane. Good story, though.
It is.
Yeah.
And that was a live story, and the coach looked at him and looked at me like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you just did that to that guy."
You get accused of going to the monitor too much, but I think everybody does. But people need to look at the rules of when you have to go to the monitor. What do you like about the current rules of college basketball? What do you think needs to change in college basketball?
Well, the problem if you don't go to the monitor and you don't get the play right, you get killed.
Yep.
They're talking about you that night on ESPN, SportsCenter, Fox Sports, whatever. The radio shows are blowing up the next day. I can't believe they missed the play, whatever. I don't like it, but we have no choices in it now. If we don't go to it, we get killed. So I don't like it, but I do like it to a certain extent. But there's every year they tweak the rules, whether or not what you can do with the monitor, what you can't do with the monitor. A lot of leagues, they used to have the timing device, and they went away with that. So now you saw in the NCAA tournament that we had to go to the monitor with, we had to put 3/10 back on the clock, or 4/10 or 5/10. Well, the problem if you don't do that and you go back, like we did that in that San Diego State Florida Atlantic game. So we went back into the beginning of that play to see if, one, the clock started on time. 2, if the shot was off on time, and 3, whether the ball, if there was any time left on the clock when it went through the net. Like if there was that stuff that happened, like if the clock went early, like what was the game that they had? Oh, the Creighton game.
Yeah.
Where they disallowed it.
That took forever.
It took forever. Now, you got to understand one thing about when you go to the monitor, you don't get that view right away. It takes a while for that certain picture to come out to see the view that the perfect angle, because there's 25 angles.
Yeah.
To get that perfect angle with the clock in it, to see if the clock started on time, like that play in that game, 1.2, correct? It was thrown. They checked. They saw the clock didn't start on time, right?
Yeah.
And by the time it went out of bounds, so they go put a clock insert into the TV. Now, if they don't do that, just say they don't do that, and then they throw the ball and Creighton tips it in and they win, and they go back and they find out. It's like in our game in the San Diego State Florida Atlantic game. See how close that guy was to the line?
Yeah.
We had no idea that he was that close to the line. Just think if we missed that play, we would have been roasted. We had a great game, all game. Dad, we missed a call here.
All it takes is one.
Takes one call to just screw the whole game up.
Wow.
If we miss that and they go back and they find, we score that, we score the basket, he went out of bounds, we are roasted. We're the worst officials that ever worked in the NCAA tournament. We got lucky on that play. The baseline official, it wasn't even on his radar that he was that close. Now, he was opposite on the baseline. The guy was over here, but...
I mean, some things you're just not going to see.
No, and you're not. With 3 guys,
yeah,
you're not going to see it. But when you have 25, 28, 30 cameras,
true,
you're going to see everything under the sun.
Wow. Hey, Dr. Rob, before we wrap this thing up, you have a big pipeline event coming up, right? Don't you?
We do.
Yeah, that's going to be...
Night before the spring game.
That's going to be at the Hale Varsity Cafe. That's
Papillion.
In Papillion.
It's down there by Cabela's.
Right by Cabela's. You can't miss it. The Hooters is there. Hale Varsity's there. But what time are you good? Because you're good. The original pipeline's going to be there. By the way, somebody they're going to.
This is 2 weeks out. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay,
night, I believe 7 p.m.
7 p.m. You guys going to be there? It's going to be. Wilkes is going to be in town. Stye's going to be there.
The whole
pipeline's going to be there.
Wow.
Somebody's made a logo and making money off your idea, by the way. You came up with the pipeline.
That was us who came up with the logo.
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
was it? Okay. I didn't know that. I thought somebody was making a logo.
No. So
okay.
so we NIL'd ourselves.
Nice. And you got pipeline, jerky? No, you got some beef jerky?
So that is actually, a different group started that, but it's a group of guys here in Nebraska who, and basically their goal was to put together, they wanted to do something to help out the current O-line at Nebraska.
Okay.
And the idea behind it is let's come up with a product, we'll sell it, come up with money, and we're going to take a portion of the profits and it's all going to go into an NIL fund for Nebraska O-linemen. And so they named it Pipeline Jerky. And so we're kind of getting together to work on some partnerships with those guys. You can't trademark or copy, you can't copyright the name Pipeline.
Yeah.
It's a common usage word. So, and actually, I mean, there's if you go look at, this is kind of the interesting thing of trademarking. There's 19 different people who've copyrighted logos with Pipeline. It's all plumbing supply company. it's all ag irrigation and petroleum companies. So anyway, but yeah, so we're going to be down there. But yeah, the logo, all of that stuff, that was us.
Okay. That. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
thanks for keeping me in the loop.
Well, I mean, until it kind of became official in this event.
But you haven't even told me about it.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
So when is this?
So it'll be April 21st?
Because
Friday night before the spring.
Because we are going to be at Cross Train in La Vista on Sunday, starting at 2:00. Everybody make their plans now. Rob and I are going to be doing a live podcast at 2:00.
Say hi, have a beer, ask questions.
Yeah,
we'll answer them.
Yeah, so it'll be a good time. So
we'll be down at Hale Varsity there in Papillion. out by Cabela's Friday night before the spring game and hanging out, signing autographs. And again, if you want to ask questions, all of that. So.
If you need a roof, if you need some siding, go to rooferees.com. That's rooferees.com. He's all over KFAB. John Higgins loves Jim Rose more than he loves us.
No, I'm on 1620.
Are you on 1620 now?
You
used to be on KFAB, though, didn't you?
I was at one time, but we're at 1620.
You're at 1620 now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Gary Sharp.
Gary Sharp.
Gary's a good dude. I like
Gary.
Gary.
Dude.
Yeah.
He's a great man.
Rooferees.com. No, John's not going to come out and do your estimate, okay? Just to let you know. But if
I may.
Bullshit. When's the last time you were on a ladder?
No, I was on a ladder the other day.
At your own house.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
By the way, John's a worker. You go if you drive by his house, and I'm not going to tell you where he lives because you might put a bag of shit there. But you'll see him on a Bobcat.
Ask Kentucky fans.
Yeah, he will be working all the time. But seriously, John has done.
We've used him for a bunch of projects in our house.
Yeah, so Dr. Rob has used him.
Always gotten great service.
I've used him. You should too. Go to rooferees.com. That's rooferees.com if you need some siding or if you need a new roof. If you need a lawyer, Connor Orr is your guy. Connor Orr is he's a good friend of the show. He's a J-sker. I know, but you just need to know that. He's a J-sker. He doesn't hide from it. He's a partner at Orr in Horrigan. And I tell you what, if you need a civil litigation, if you need a business attorney, if you need contract attorneys, personal injury, real estate, or yes, even some NIL help if you want to represent or give some money, and because he's a registered sports agent, go to orrinhorrigan.com. It's orrhorrigan.com. That's ORRHORGAN.com. Or contact them at 402-408-6488 if you need some lawyer help. And of course, the Doc Talk podcast is presented by Betfred Sports. Find out why everyone is talking about betting with Betfred. Baseball is back, the playoffs for hockey and the NBA right around the corner. No better time to find out about the buzz around Betfred than right now. When you place your first wager with Betfred of $50 or more, you immediately get $111 in Fred bets and 50% back on your losses up to $200 weekly for the first 5 weeks of betting with Fred. Go to betfredsports.com, download the app on the Apple and Google Play stores. John, thanks, man.
You're welcome. That was fun.
And you only did like 2 drinks.
That was 4.
That was 4?
Yeah.
There were 2 big ones.
Now, his wife's upstairs drinking with my wife. So we're going to see how this one turns out.
She brought over a bottle of wine. We'll see how they're doing.
For John Higgins, for Dr. Rob Zatechka, I'm Travis Justice. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like our Facebook page. Follow Dr. Rob on Twitter at Doc Talk Sports. Follow me on Twitter at Travis Creates. For my son, Owen Justice, who's the visionary behind this whole thing, the producer, the director, he makes this whole thing happen. Thank you for listening to the Doc Talk podcast presented by Betfred Sports.